All right, thanks for staying with us now. According to Oxford Journal of Law and Religion, Volume 3, Issue 2, since its independence in 1960, Nigeria has struggled unsuccessfully to clearly articulate the relationship between religion and the state, whereas the British colonists seemingly bequeathed to the new nation state a secular regime at independence. The international contradictions, which paradoxically were propagated by the colonial authority, incubated to pose a challenge to the new state soon thereafter. On the one hand, there was the Muslim North groomed under the English indirect rule, which accommodated the Sharia legal order. On the other hand, there was the Christian Aminist South, mentioned under the British secular regime. Thus, the post-independent secular state was, which seemed acceptable to the Christian Aminist South, was abhorred by the Muslim North. This paradox has remained the Achilles heel of the Nigeria's corporate existence. So what do you think the religious influence, that we've had in Nigeria has cost us as a people, especially in our political structure? Now, please, let's hear what you have to say. Remember, you can join the conversation. Send us an SMS or WhatsApp to 081-803-4663. You can also tweet at us at WaysHowAfrica1 with the hashtag WaysShow. All right, so Mani and Noma, I just wanted to hear your quick thoughts because I want to bring in our guests, as quickly as possible. What do you think, right? Because every single time, especially the elections are drawing near, we're not only talking, okay, zoning, there's one conversation around zoning. There's still another conversation around religion all the time. Yeah. Or it's almost like an unwritten rule that if a Muslim comes into power and does 8 years, the next time it has to be a Christian and all of that. Do you think this is actually impacting, the political landscape in Nigeria? Do you think so?
I think religion has been a dominant factor in the lives of most Nigerians, and it actually influences the way they do a lot of things. It influences the way we think, the way we talk, the culture. It influences the way we relate with one another. So if it's influencing the way we relate with one another, then yes, we see that it's, it's a big deal in our political space. So for me, what I see is it has the negative and the positive implications. So on the one hand, we have religion providing basic moral values for citizens, helping with national development, because it helps us with good leadership and obedient followership. Then on the other hand, we see that it becomes a tool for confusion and manipulation. So I think it's the way we see religion in our country is like a pendulum. So it shifts from side to side.
Yeah. Absolutely, I agree with you, Mani. Religion has played a very critical role in our politics in Nigeria as a whole. It has been a tool to guide people, like you rightly said. It has also been a tool for manipulating people. When we talk religion, it's what we believe shapes the lives of people, what helps them to be able to decide. And the thing about religion is that it cuts across all aspects of the people, whether it's in marriage, whether it's in the economy, health, law, education, and all of that. When we use it critically, when we use it constructively, it can actually help people to be guided in the right kind of direction. But when it is used to manipulate people, you find out that a lot of things can happen. We see there's cases of people, for example, now that politics, it's the political era. You see people either going to church or going to the mosque, just trying to key into the emotional side of people. When people say, oh, he's a Christian, but they do not look at the person who wants to come out as a leader, whether he is competent for the job as a leader or whether he is performing for the people. And that's where the problem begins to develop.
Absolutely. So let me bring in our guest, right? Dele Farotimi is a lawyer, author, member of the Citizens Rally Against Oppression. Dele needs no introduction here on Ways because he's become a friend of the house. Now he's a political commentator who is very passionate about the birth of a new Nigeria and better Nigeria. And he's joined us, as always, via Zoom. Thank you so much, Dele Farotimi, for joining us this evening.
Very much for having me. Good evening, Uwa.
Hi, Dele.
Good evening, man.
So,
and in your man.
Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, so I was going to say that, you know, this conversation, you know, something happened, I think it was 2 weeks ago, where a young girl was lynched in Sokoto, Deborah Samuel. And of course, it was around blasphemy, as they called it, right? But what stood out for me was the fact that a presidential aspirant, what's his name, Atiku, went on Twitter and wrote something down. And because, you know, immediately somebody attacked him that, oh, you just lost my vote. And, you know, of course, he brought down that tweet and came out with so many videos trying to explain how this is, you know, he tries to vet and all of that works that he said. So it just got me thinking, right? Because every single time the elections come close in this country, if we're not discussing zoning, the biggest conversation that we talk about is he a Muslim, is he a Christian? Then if you now pick, like, for instance, a principal like the president, the vice president has to be the other religion. So if the president is Muslim, the vice president has to be Christian, you know, same thing with governorship, you know, and deputies and all of that. So every single time, this is what we see in our political architecture in Nigeria. But is this really supposed to be how things are supposed to be done? And really, what is religion costing us as a people when we keep allowing, what's it called, decision making to be based off of the religion that the person is practicing, as opposed whether the competence or the capability of that person to govern or take the country forward?
Well, thank you very much, Uwa. You know, the last time I was with you, I did say something about your capacity to dredge up topics for discussion that are not necessarily mainstream. And this is one of them. You're quite brave, wanting to talk religion at the time when politics is around the corner, and now you want the influence of religion. Let me just say this to you straight up. Nigerians are religious without being godly. Let's get that clear. Let it sink in. Those who killed Deborah Samuel did not kill Deborah Samuel in pursuit of godliness. They did so because they are hateful creatures.
Yeah.
There was nothing blasphemous about what the lady said, but assuming that there was indeed anything blasphemous about what she said, when did it become the the duty of a mob to become both the accuser, the judge, the jury, and the executioners? But what should strike all of us is the fact that there was absolutely nothing unusual about what happened to Deborah Samuel. It's become commonplace in northern Nigeria, particularly in northern Nigeria. Not that killings are new in Nigeria, but killing in the name of God has become part of the social fabric and architecture in northern Nigeria. But it was not always like that. There was a time when rulers or leaders managed to rule their people using their brains instead of using hatred to govern people. Deborah Samuel was a Christian. Blasphemy under Nigerian laws could never have applied to someone who is not a Muslim. But this was a situation where there was nothing Islamic about what happened to her. It was just a function of a state that has gone rogue, is incapable of protecting those who should be citizens, and has enabled the impunity of those who knew that when they killed her, nothing will happen to them. And nothing will happen to them. You can put that on record. Nigeria killed her. It wasn't those urchins fellow students. These were not faceless people. Fellow students. There were DSS officers there, according to the government. See, the killers of Deborah were not only those who threw the stones. It's the system that has enabled it. But to deal at length with the body of the question itself, which deals more with the place of religion in Nigeria and how it has influenced or impacted our politics. Fact of the matter is that religion has not been a positive influence on Nigerian politics or governance. We have churches on almost every street. If there is no church, there is a mosque. People are busy banging their heads on the floor 5 times a day. They are busy in church morning, noon, and afternoon, and yet evil pervades our land. The evil is not even respectful of the places of worship. It happens right inside the churches and the mosques. You find hateful words proceeding from the mouths of those who should preach love and peace. By their fruits, you shall know them.
Yeah.
If religion has been such a positive force in Nigeria, we should see the fruits.
Yeah.
Once upon a time in this country, before it began its journey of unilateral restructuring, religion was kept in its proper place, in the private spaces of individuals. It wasn't something that was embraced by the state. And I would quickly like to correct something. Even though the British tolerated Sharia, the criminal law of Sharia was never tolerated. It was always the civil laws. Laws on intestacy, laws on marriage, never the criminal laws of Sharia. Even Ahmadu Bello adopted the penal code in place of the Sharia law. It was only after Obasanjo's presidency in 2002 leading up to 2003 that you had the likes of Yerima using Sharia as a galvanizing political tool in order to make sure that Obasanjo's tsunami of 2003 did not sweep them out. Almost all the northern governors followed Yerima. So it wasn't something that it was always there as a cultural thing, but it was not allowed in the public space to govern criminal activities. The penal code survived. Nobody was ever amputated in this country, at least in modern time, until Yerima started his madness. The Zamfara, where he started his madness, is the most horrible place for security in Nigeria today. Because it was never about anything beyond politics. It was used to galvanize and to mobilize. And that is what it has become in Nigeria. Religion has not improved our morals. It has not improved the pool of leadership, and it has certainly not improved our society. It's vacuous. It's empty of any spirituality or godliness. It's just vacuous. Nothing more than empty noises. It does not show in character or content.
Oh, wow. Ladies.
Wow.
Okay, so I hear you and I really believe what you're saying. I think religion has done just one thing, create a division. So now it seems that we don't have a clear path on state and religion. So how do we correct this? How do we separate state from religion?
Well, Manny, I wish I had a quick fix to our problems. And I wish it was only religion that we need to be dealing with. But we have myriads of problems. Yes, we've got to start somewhere. But to deal with the issue of religion, first thing first, Nigeria cannot operate on 2 tracks. It's currently operating on 2 tracks. Sharia law is being elevated to the same position as the Constitution. The Constitution declares Nigeria to be a secular state.
Absolutely.
Which means that there should be no state religion. But the same Constitution, fraudulent as it is, began to give recognition to religion. Now, you have a situation today where there are clear steps taken in fulfillment of Sharia law that are in clear contradiction to the Constitution. If I am trading alcohol in Kano the Isba comes to me and it breaks my beer bottle, I probably will be fined, if not imprisoned. But when they are sharing VAT
yeah.
on the wine that I drink in Lagos,
they share to them.
Nobody is going to remove the VAT collected from me when they are paying Kanu, when they are paying Zamfara, or any of the other places where my wine will be illegal because of Sharia law. And I have no protection under the Nigerian constitution because the Sharia law has been elevated above the constitution that binds or should bind all of us together. So if we really want to keep religion, and it's not just Sharia, even Christians, where they dominate, they're having pilgrims board to your law. What is the business of the state with religion to the point of sponsoring people to Hajj, sponsoring people to Jerusalem?
Exactly.
I have never come across any part of the Bible where it says I must undergo a pilgrimage to Hajj and to Jerusalem. When they couldn't go to Jerusalem, they started sponsoring people to Jordan. They were going to Jordan on public fund just to equalize the madness of Muslims going to Mecca. It doesn't make any sense. Why are you sponsoring? See, these things, they go to the fundamental of who we have become as a people. It's either we are a secular state or we are not. The way we are right now, might is right. The governor might decide that he wants to send as many people as he cares to either Mecca or to Jerusalem, or in some cases, perhaps, like I said, to Jordan. And there is nothing anybody can do about it. That is how we waste public resources on frivolous religiosity that bets nothing to anybody. So you want to do it, you have to enforce some degree of decorum. Some rules must be enforced. It cannot be that we say we are protesting secularity, but we are anything but secular.
Okay. All right, so let's go on a very short break. It's a serious matter. When I come back from the break, I'll hear your question, Norma. Stay with us, we'll be right back. All right, so if you just tuned in, we are discussing the cost of religious influence in Nigerian politics, and we have with us Dele Farotimi. Please, let's hear what you have to say. Remember, you can join the conversation, send us an SMS or WhatsApp to 081-803-8663. You can also tweet at us at WaysShowAfrica1 with the hashtag WaysShow. All right, so Norma, you had a question before I come again.
Yes, I did. It was still around leadership and performance, competence of leaders. Now, I found interesting a part of the Constitution that emphasizes national integration, which says it should be actively encouraged. And accordingly, discrimination on the grounds of place of origin, sex, religion, status, ethnic, and linguistic association or ties shall be prohibited, while national ethics shall be discipline, integrity, dignity of labor, social justice, religious tolerance, self-reliance, and patriotism. So I wanted to ask, where does the law enforcement of we have a constitution and we are supposed to have guidelines towards using that constitution. Why is it that the leaders, the so-called leaders that we have, are not guided by the constitution? I mean, you had mentioned that the kind of people that we have become. Is it because that we have lost our sense of value, so to speak? Because if we say we're being guided by integrity and discipline, dignity of labor, and then what we see on a daily is people who use religion and other vices to manipulate the people into getting what they want. My question is, how can we, how do we move beyond this? And why is it that our leaders are not being held accountable to these things?
Well, sorry that I couldn't help myself, Norma. I just had to chuckle. Chuckle because you kept using one word continually. You kept referring to leaders. Unfortunately for us,
we don't have leaders.
We had all of the disasters the world over endures. Spared hurricanes, spared earthquakes, typhoons. You know what we got? Horrible rulers. We don't have leaders. To lead, you need to have a destination in mind. The destination to which you are leading is rarely ever physical. It's always some place in the future. And most time, the leader does not even get into that future, but he communicates the vision. And the people harness their resources and their strengths, and they follow based on the strength of the vision of the leader. Unfortunately for us, Nigeria has been blighted by horrible, self-serving, myopic rulers who have rarely ever imagined beyond anything beyond their bellies and their base appetites. If you consider the fact that practically everyone that have ruled this country or states or even local governments, the first thing they do is to seek a cure for the hunger that drove them to power. And those hungers are rarely ever based on an hunger to do something to be remembered by history. It's always materialistic. If it's not about material, then it's some appetite that has to be fed. So unfortunately for us, Neoma, I am sorry to be the bearer of this bad news. Up till this moment, in the long history of this blighted country, we have not been blessed by leadership. That is the tragedy of our country. So now, having kept that to one side, let me assure you that once upon a time in this country, religion was kept in its proper place. As I have said before, it was in the private space of the individual. It was the moment when the Nigerian began to lose its citizenship and the rulers began to emerge who were not in power because the people voted them to power and had to find different ways to legitimize their stay in power. They now started playing to base sentiments, religion, tribe, and other things that they have now used to divide the people, but which do not divide the ruling class. So the rulers are not divided by the religion, they are not divided by ethnicity. It's only when they want to share and to legitimize their loot that they remind the ruled of the fact of their religion, of the fact of their ethnicity, but they themselves, they intermarry, they do businesses together, they don't believe in God. They don't even remember that they will die. So it is we, the common people, who are always invested in religion because we've been told who was born a Christian. If your mother was a Muslim, you would have been a Muslim. If your father was a Christian, you would have been a Christian. None of us came from heaven grabbing a Quran or a Bible or anything. And even if we clutch it when we die, we'll drop it when we draw our last breath. I don't know why people cannot just get to the point where they understand clearly that your religion should be your private business. But again, like I have said, it is because, unfortunately for us, we do not have leaders. We have self-serving, myopic, blind mice ruling us who only ever think of the next car, the next house, the next woman or the next man, and they rarely ever remember tomorrow. So our problem, religion, yes, but it's just because it's a tool for division, not a tool for unification of the people.
All right.
No.
All right, Dele, Farotimi. So I want us to step back into the influence right now. Currently, we know that in Nigeria, religious leaders are quite influential with the number of people they follow. And that's why when it comes to politics or the elections are drawing near, you see some laying on of hands, somebody going to the altar to go and kneel down, somebody going to preach and all of that. So this thing is there. It tells you that even they, the ruling class, as you call them, they understand that there's a power that these people wield. So is there any way we can appeal, to if we can't talk to the ruling class, is there any way we can appeal to the minds and the minds of our religious leaders? Because again, in the US, for instance, I know, I'm not so much of a history person, but I know that a lot of revolution that happened, with the influence of great men that were religious, right? And they didn't hide their faith. right? So it tells us that, okay, if anything has to happen, if there has to be some level of change and all of that, these religious leaders that we already have, because they're already making a very huge impact, whether we like it or not, we know that they can actually change the course and the direction of this country. So how can we get them, to start appealing to their consciences and no longer being silent, being neutral, because I see a few are doing it, Paula De Farasi, Tunde Bakari, a few of them are doing it. So how can we get more religious leaders to say, we're tired of the way Nigeria is, and let us find a solution now, really maximizing the influence that we already willed?
Well, see, the word religion itself comes from the Latin root religare, which means to bind. It is designed to control the way man shapes his impulses, help him to deal with his emotions so that he might better govern them. So religious leaders do have a lot of influence and power. And as harsh as I might come across when discussing Nigerian religion generally, I must applaud certain men. I was at a protest rally held by Pastor Sam Ayedogbon, for instance, yesterday in his church at Okota in relation to the Deborah Samuel killing. At least the Nigerian church, to an extent, there is a level of awakening, exactly whether it is in the right direction or not. They are becoming a little more politically aware, to the point where you are hearing pastors talking about getting the PVC. But you see, the Nigerian church and the mosque, for that matter, look at the gentleman at the Akpo legislative quarters, digital imam, for instance. It too came out. There was another imam at the rally yesterday who also spoke extensively to peace. So religion could be a force for good if religious leaders might emerge in place of the current religious rulers. Because it is not only in our public life that we have myopia governing. Even in our religious life, we have blind mices leading congregations, brainwashing people into becoming more or less morons who just follow what the pastors and the imams say without critically thinking through their options and without taking informed decisions when it comes to political leadership in the country. So somebody comes to the church and you are busy laying hand on the person, or somebody is coming to the mosque and you are busy endorsing the person. Question is this: are you endorsing the person simply because they are your co-religionists or based on their record of service? So the Nigerian religionists, whether those be pastors or imams, because they have never heard of a traditionalist lifting somebody's hand to say he's endorsing the person. It's always the Christians and the Muslims. They are the ones who are always jumping forward to come and endorse somebody, but they endorse. All the years they've been endorsing, how many of the people they've endorsed can any one of them proudly stand behind? So when you are endorsing, you must ask yourself first, like you pointed out, in America, Martin Luther King was there, and there is Reverend Al Sharpton, and there were several others who, rising from the Southern Baptist Congress, galvanized the civil rights movement through the 60s and led to black emancipation to a very large extent. But in Nigeria, you'll find the outliers like Sam Adeyemi, for instance. You'll find those who will speak to it, but how many are actually doing something? If we're actually the salt of the earth, it means that we should affect everything we come into contact with. You have churches with congregations running into thousands, tens of thousands. How have they impacted the society in which they are? You can build masterpieces for your church. It might be edifices. You might even tag the road and even have independent power in your own campuses. But the people who sit in your pews on Sundays, how have they impacted the society into which they devolve once they've left the church? Those who come to the mosque, what do they become after they've left the mosque? So we have vacuous religiosity, and it is arising directly from the clergies themselves. The clergies are not asking the questions, and they are also not showing examples. They condone evil. The Nigerian church condones evil, and so does the mosque. Because if we do not condone evil, you cannot have so many religious houses and have so much evil and wickedness overtaking the place. By their fruit, you shall know them. What is the fruit of Nigerian religiosity? Look around you. People are coming out of church and they're driving like madmen. They can't even allow each other to go past. They can't even give right of way. They're already driving one way, coming out of the church. Same thing from the mosque. The people who are most likely to scam you are your co-congregants, whether that be in church or in the mosque. So at the end of the day, you find that everybody is busy going to church, they're busy going to mosque. But I doubt that Jesus Christ will recognize himself in the Nigerian church. And even, okay, those ones who have killed Deborah Samuel now, would the Holy Prophet clap for them? Of course not. There is nowhere in the Quran, nowhere, that blasphemy, that death was prescribed for blasphemy. Nowhere in the Quran. Men evolved that tradition. And that tradition is un-Islamic. But it's a cultural thing, and it has been normalized by the evil rulers.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay, can we say that part of the cost of this religious followership has deprived the nation of strong and competent leaders? And if yes, how do we correct this? How do we get them back?
That would be to ask if it has deprived us would be an understatement. Today, what do you believe is the quality of brains that took it upon themselves to murder Deborah Samuel? These were our fellow students in a college of education, supposedly intelligent, rational beings. Would those ones ever vote for someone who is not speaking the same language and worshiping the same way as they are? Never.
Never.
Let's deal with Atiku. You asked the question earlier on. Atiku deleted
His tweet.
a tweet because he was scared of the political backlash. That should tell us something. The political reality is that what happened to Deborah Samuel is completely normal and acceptable.
Yeah.
Atiku Abubakar, as far as he's concerned, and I'm not talking to him as a person, I'm speaking to the type. He's not the only one. How many of the aspirants came out to condemn what happened unequivocally without even the condemnation issued by the presidency? It left a lot to be desired. So when you begin to look at the different layers that has enabled what we are talking about today, you realize that we are just actually being selectively outraged. There is nothing new about what has happened. Another one almost happened in Bauchi on Friday. And when you read the text of the police commissioner's release and of the police PPRO's release in Bauchi, he said that the thing was caused by an offense of blasphemy. Even the policeman is helping them to legitimize that nonsense by the offense of blasphemy by one lady. Blasphemy. So you then begin to understand that what happened to Deborah is not a one-off. It's a systemic thing. It's normal. It's been tolerated for so long. And the impunity that governs the land has made it possible for it to continue. So it's not really like our situation is intractable, but we have run away from telling ourselves this truth for so long. We've run away from confronting the truth of the pathological hatred that certain people harbor in their spirit for anything that is not reflective of who they are. Once they're looking at something that does not look like them, the next thing is to kill. We have not come to understand that that is what we are dealing with, and we keep sidestepping the issues. The reality is if we do not reinstitute the rule of law in Nigeria and stop mollycoddling murderers who kill in the name of God and get away with it with impunity, Nigeria is lost if we continue like this.
Wow. So if I may ask, Dele, it took a process
Yes.
to get us to where we are as a nation. And now we are preparing towards another or we're already in the political era again, where we are to elect new leaders, new people to represent us as a nation. Do you have any advice as to how we can begin now? What brought us, the process that brought us to where we are as a nation and as a people? Is there anything you can advise for us as individuals now that we know that this is something that has brought us where we are? What can we begin to do, either as individuals or citizens of Nigeria, to begin to be the cost of religious influence? As in, how can we as Nigerians now remove that cost from us and begin to deliberately gear towards leaders that can actually take us to where we're headed? I don't know if I make sense with that question.
Well, you do, but the question you've asked, it goes beyond the scope of our discussion. And I will say, why I say that is that this is not really going to be dealt with because we dealt with the influence of religion in our politics. It will be because we found the courage to admit that we are lost. If I'm traveling to Badagry and I face the direction of Ekpe, however long I travel towards Badagry, if I don't turn around, I'll never get to Ekpe. Nigeria got lost in 1966. That was when the basis for the creation of Nigeria was truncated. Nigeria would never have been without compromises being made. And the compromises that were made came to the agreement that we would be a state of federating regions. Religion will be kept out of public life. In the northern part of Nigeria, where Muslims preponderate at that time, what happened was that there were further compromises made, principally by Ahmadu Bello. So Sharia was not adopted in deference, full Sharia was not adopted in deference to the Muslims and to the Christians in the northern part of Nigeria. But today, those compromises have been jettisoned without the voice of the people being heard. Today, Nigeria is no longer a federation. It has moved from a federation of 4 regions and become a state of 36 states, where the so-called federal government is creating constituent units, even creating local governments. So if we want to go back to some modicum of peace, we need to step back in time. We need to restructure our country to go back to the foundational agreement that allowed us to be a federation where each region moves at its own pace and keeps religion in the private space.
Yes.
Without doing that, it would amount to us continuing to paper over cracks, painting the house that is tottering and ready to collapse, and nothing more than that. Maybe we'll buy a little time, but eventually it will implode.
Wow. Let's take final comments from the audience and wrap this up. Today I'm not in a good place. Go ahead.
All right. So I have this comment from Daniel, and it's a long one. He says, "Good evening, my dear beautiful sisters of What Are You Saying? #ways. When we talk about the cost of religious influence in the Nigerian politics, it has helped some people due to their own personal greed and selfishness and nothing more. The hunger for power and authority in Nigeria is a serious matter. People know that they cannot deliver, but they want to occupy an office by all means. They only remember God and attending church when they want to satisfy their urge. Like your guest, Dele Farotimi, said, he made my day by saying that we have never had good leadership in Nigeria. In a nutshell, leadership in Nigeria has been a total nightmare and nothing more. God help us in Jesus' name.
Amen.
My name is Daniel Ilo.
Manny,
Ways
quickly, your
regular
comment.
fan.
Greetings, ladies. I heartily appreciate today's guest because I constantly learn a lot from him each time he is invited. He has said all Nigerians' lives are more religious than godly. Gift of 4 from Luanda, Angola.
Thank you, Gift. Dele Farotimi, we can't thank you enough that every time we call, you always hear us. And we are hoping that we'll keep on driving conversations that will get Nigerians thinking. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you,
Always a
ladies.
pleasure.
Now, before we go, do ensure you follow us on Instagrams at PlusTvAfrica. You can interact with us further, drop a comment, and more importantly, follow all our engagements on social media. Like, share, invite your families and friends to watch and follow the conversation. There's a lot going on right now, but if you missed today's quote, here it is again. Religion and politics are two of the hardest things to talk about, yet they mean so much to us as a people. We have to start finding ways to work around this and finding solutions that would help better our country. We'll see you guys live at 8 p.m. tomorrow as we bring another great conversation to your screen. Enjoy.